I had a gift to play the game, but I also worked very hard to play the game. That's one thing I was mindful of as I continued to coach and manage, because I think I've run across players and people in general that the last thing you want to hear is that you've just been gifted something, and people have no idea how much hard work you sacrifices that you have made, the things you've chosen to not do so you continue to practice or show up to perform or whatever. So I did have a gift, but I honed my gift.
Welcome to the Limitless Leadership Lounge, a tri-generational conversation for emerging leaders.
As baseball season approaches and opening day is just around the corner, we are excited to welcome here to the Limitless Leadership Lounge a longtime person who has been involved in the baseball world forever, it seems. And so if you're a big baseball fan, I'm sure you have heard of our guest today. So maybe that's why you clicked on the episode. It's the Limitless Leadership Lounge. I'm Jon Goehring, joined as always by Coach Jim Johnson. If you're enjoying the content that we're bringing to you today, because leadership in athletics, there's a lot of crossover to leadership in business and leadership in life. So if you're looking to improve your leadership and looking to take the next step as a young and emerging leader, hearing from today's guest will certainly help you. So Coach, go ahead and introduce Clint and let's dive right in.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to Clint Hurdle. I had the opportunity to listen to Clint on a couple podcasts, and as he kidded me, I've been persistent because I think he'll be a great for our audience. And Clint grew up in the Florida area, was a great athlete, baseball, football, and other sports, but the sport that he ended up playing professionally was baseball, where he played in the major leagues for a number of years. He was also at 20 years old, on the cover of Sports Illustrated. They were rating him the number one player coming into the major leagues that year in 1978. Clint, after his baseball career, got into coaching, so I appreciate that, being a coach for 35 years myself, and ended up being the manager of both the Colorado Rockies and the Pittsburgh Pirates. And I do got a little funny side thing. We were supposed to have Clint on earlier, and we were excited, and all of a sudden, I'm watching ESPN, and they said, the Colorado Rockies have hired a new hitting coach, and it's Clint Hurdle. And so Clint had more on his plate, so we weren't able to interview them, but we're excited to have you on now. Clint, without any further ado, welcome to the Limitless Leadership Lounge.
Jim, John, I'm looking forward to the opportunity. Spend some time with you, and hopefully we can share some experience, strength, and hope for a lot of these younger leaders that are out listening, maybe some of the more mature leaders like myself as we continue to grow, but also looking to have some laughs and some fun.
Absolutely. So we're looking forward. I also wanted to mention that Clint has a book, because we do have a YouTube channel called the Hurdle-isms, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And we'll dig into that a little bit as well. I have recommended that to my network. So Clint, I'm curious. You're a young guy. You're obviously highly rated, and you're on the cover of Sports Illustrated at 20 years old. Tell us your journey a little bit getting to that point, and then afterwards, and the ups and downs, because I know you had some real ups and some real downs in your baseball career.
Yeah, but I'll try and give you the cliff notes. But coming out of high school, I was blessed and fortunate, and I worked very hard to put myself in a very unique situation. I had visited a number of colleges at football quarterback. I was an All-American quarterback in high school, as an All-American baseball player in high school. In basketball, I played 2 years, and I was basically seventh or eighth guy on the team, dive on the floor, take a foul, give a foul. Just use the backboard a lot, which I had to step away from basketball, focus on football and baseball. Baseball had been my first love since the age of 5. One day, my dad took me out back and looked down at me and said, "Son, you want to play catch?" And being 5, I said, "Well, what are we going to catch, Dad?" He pulled out 2 gloves and a couple balls and said, "Son, I have a passion and love for the game of baseball, and I'm hoping to share some of them with you and see if you can find the same love and passion I have." We're 63 years down the road, and the trajectory has been incredible, challenging, fun along the way. But back to high school, upon graduation, I had signed a letter of intent at the University of Miami to play both sports, football and baseball. I had an academic scholarship offer to Harvard. None of the Ivy League schools offered athletic scholarships. They're all academically based. My grades were very good in high school. I only made 1B in high school. For years I was there. That's in driver's ed, and that's a story for another podcast. My mother, open and opportunistic as my dad was in being available, to practice, to play, to coach, to be there, to support, never force-fed sports. My mother was on this other side with school, with academia. You need to be able to read. You need to be able to write. You need to be able to think. You need to study. You need to learn. We all hope everything goes well in sport. You could get hurt. You could go play at a level where you're not the best anymore. You need to have an opportunity to have something else in your pocket to depend upon or rely upon. So I had academics, scholarship offer to Harvard. I had the football, baseball opportunity in Miami. Then I was drafted in the first round, ninth pick in the nation in 1975 by the Kansas City Royals. As we worked through the opportunities, and all I could think about was how thankful I was to my mother for staying with me and pushing me and nudging me for grades and schoolwork, because it put us in a very unique situation. The University of Miami knew I had good grades. It wasn't like they could leverage my situation. Baseball scouts knew I had good grades, knew the Harvard opportunity was real. Playing football or baseball guys was real. So I do believe my dad, in his best agent-like mode, probably scripted the best contract he could have come up with based on the information he had. And baseball had been a passion of mine since that first day my dad asked me to play catch at the age of 5. So we chose, they actually told me, you need to choose. It's not what I want you to do. It's not what your mom wants you to do. You need to choose. So I chose baseball. I played 2 seasons, actually 2.5 seasons in the minor leagues with the Royals. Learned a lot. Left home for the first time. My first full season at Waterloo, Iowa. Had a horrible first half. Thought about quitting. And my dad told me, quit. If you quit once, you got a chance of becoming good at it. You got to be able to do hard. You got to find a way to do hard. Second half of the season was a completely different player. Fantastic second half. Went to AAA. The next year, bypassed AA, which was unheard at the time. I was 19 in AAA. And ended up being the MVP of the league. Our team went to the championship series. I got to the big leagues later that year. And in spring training of 78, I was surprised. Sports Illustrated for a few years had chosen somebody to put on the cover around spring training time. This might have been the second or third year they were doing it. So they go around to various spring training sites and take pictures of a lot of guys and interview a lot of people. And then whoever they picked, nobody back in the day, one of Sports Illustrated's gifts was they never announced the cover. You didn't know the cover until it arrived in your mailbox. You saw it at the grocery store or 7-Eleven. It was a fun day in spring training. The day I woke up to go to the park, I always would stop the same 7-Eleven. I'd get a quart of milk and a honey bun. Breakfast of champions. Remember honey bun? The honey bun and a quart of milk. And this time, a young kid my age at the cash register, I'd seen him many times, brought everything up to the counter. I looked at him, said, good morning. He said, good morning. And then for some reason, he looked down. At this time in 7-Elevens, they didn't have a magazine counter or stand. There were 3 magazines on the counter, Time, Newsweek, and Sports Illustrated.
Wow.
And his eye left mine, and he looked down, and he kind of looked, and then he looked back at me, and he looked down, he looked back at me, and then I looked down, and I saw my face on the cover of Sports Illustrated for the first time. And I looked at him, he looked at me. I just turned and walked out. I left the hay bun, I left the milk. I went to the park, and actually that day my life changed in some different areas. It's pretty surreal.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk about the pressure that comes with being, obviously the Sports Illustrated cover didn't really change, like, as far as the pressure that you were already feeling as a highly touted prospect. But throughout all of that, and for any leader who's inherited a large position or is supposed to deliver some great results, what kind of pressure comes with that, and how do you handle that?
At the time, I'm 20, and I'd never run through a situation like this before. Nowadays, for our young drafts or young players, we have media training, we have rookie class, we have so many different vehicles and opportunities, social networking class, social media networking classes. So they're aware of, they realize how you look for good, you find it, you look for bad, you find it, how to network, how to be useful, how to best be served by it, and how to best serve using it. There's none of that around. So initially, I felt pressure to perform, which I had really not felt a whole lot of it ever in my life career.
Interesting.
And Chuck Noll back in the day had a quote that Peyton Manning made very popular when he was quarterbacking the Colts. So pressure is what you feel when you don't know what you're doing. And as I look back now, exactly what I felt, because I did not know what I was doing. I felt fear for the first time in that capacity. And you know what? I allowed fear to get inside because what was to be fearful of other than what people thought? And that self-imposed prison we can put ourselves in. What are people going to think? Do I deserve this? Some people, I found out quickly, a lot of people didn't think I deserved it. A lot of guys that had been in the big leagues 10, 12 years or had played 35, 40 years old, never been on the cover of anything. I walk in the clubhouse at 20 and I'm on the cover.
Wow.
So that was intense. And then as the year played out around the league, I probably got more than my fair share of pitches inside. Attention. I was on the cover and the self-imposed anxiety, always feeling the need to perform, always feeling the need to rise above. But it almost was a catch-22 situation where if I had a good game, I would look for the things I didn't do well rather than just take some time to appreciate the things I did do well. And if I went 3 for 5, it wasn't the 3 hits, it was the 2 outs, maybe a missed cutoff man, something else that had happened. So I put myself in a really hard spot. And over the course of the season, you play 162 games at the major league level, it can be quite monumental. Did I handle it well? I handled it the best I could. Looking back, I gave it everything I had. I used the tools that I had. It was overwhelming, definitely at times. And it took me years, probably in my own mind, to recover and find a piece in which to go out and play again, where I didn't have to perform in front of everybody. I didn't have to help every fan like me. There was a time that year, I think they even said if I was supposed to do everything that everybody thought I was supposed to do, I would give $1 million to cancer. I'd win a Nobel Prize and I'd marry Maria Osmond. That was a smart aleck way to try and quiet some people down, but there was some truth to it because I had put myself in a situation where I never felt that I had done as good as I could have done. And that can be very deflating. And
How about as far as being humbled, Clint? Because baseball as a hitter is one of the most humbling things in any sport because 3 out of 10 can get you in the Hall of Fame. Tell us, because I know in your career you had some really good moments and not so good, but I know you also went back down in the minors. Can you tell us about that experience and what you learned and how that helped you?
yes, I had a gift to play the game, but I also worked very hard to play the game. That's one thing I was mindful of as I continued to coach and manage, because I think I've run across players and people in general that the last thing you want to hear is that you've just been gifted something and people have no idea how much hard work you, sacrifices that you have made, the things you've chosen to not do so you continue to practice or show up to perform or whatever. So I did have a gift, but I honed my gift. And when I got to the big leagues, through some of the complications, self-imposed anxiety, I had a hitting coach, Charlie Lau, who was famously gifted in coaching hitters. He had one thought on hitting. Our manager, Whitey Herzog, had a completely different thought on hitting. I just one of those kids that I could hit.
Yeah.
And then I put myself in a position where I got caught in between the two of them. I kind of lost my own identity at the plate. In doing so, I ended up finding myself back in AAA at one time, actually more years at AAA later. But I realized the first time I went down, I ran into a wonderful man named Gordy McKenzie. And Gordy just reminded me that, you know what? You're not the first guy this has happened to. You had a full year in the big leagues and now a couple months. Now you're back. You've lost your way. I'm going to help you find your way back. So we went into a routine, outfield play, defense, base running, kind of baseball 101, just to help me fall back in love with the game, get away from the stress, the media. There's not as much media in AAA. There's not as much stress in AAA. There's not as much distractions in AAA. And Gordy helped me find my way back. And actually was a part of, through Charlie Lau and those experiences, that one of the Hurdle-isms came about. There's 2 kinds of people in this world, those that are humble and those that are about to be. And I felt that was really the first time that I felt in that about to be. Because I had gotten to a point where I didn't need a lot of humility. I wasn't a braggart, but I was very confident. But I just wasn't good enough. I think that's one of the greatest lessons we can learn in leadership at times is what does it feel like when you're just not, and how do you react and handle that type of adversity? I was fortunate that I had a mentor, a man that helped me realize, you know what? You've done it before. You've got the answers. You've got the playbook. We just need to go do the playbook again. I was able to do that. and then I was able to find my way back to the big leagues. Played a number of years in the big league, and then found myself back in AAA when I tried to recreate my career and take on a few new positions. Didn't need to be humbled that second time like I had the first, because I'd already been humbled, and that was one of the best lessons I learned early on.
Wow. Yeah, I chuckle because you mentioned there's not a lot of media in AAA. In college, I used to actually intern for a summer at the Rochester Red Wings here, the local AAA team, and as a member of the media for a local radio station. And there were a couple nights when I walked into the manager's office, Mike Quaddy, and I was the only one. And talk about intimidating for a 20-year-old kid. Okay, here's a AAA manager, formerly in the majors. I got to talk to him on my own. So I hear you, but it's a wonderful AAA it's still a high level and can be a wonderful learning experience. So what would you say? Because we see that a lot in the major, just even casually following baseball, we see that a lot where a guy comes out and is sensational in the majors, and then like a year or two later, so now he's down in AAA. What advice would you give to that athlete or that leader who's been through something similar in a different way? Say they have a big leadership position and then somehow get humbled and need to back off into a lower position.
Failure is an event. It's not a person. And I think first and foremost, honest self-evaluation is critical, because and be willing to take ownership of the mistakes you may have made along the way, or the decisions that you made that did not work out. One of the fun things I shared with the media over the time, and one of the hardest things for a manager doing the big leagues, I did it for 17 years, is those pitching changes that you make when you take the starter out, you bring a reliever in, or you take a reliever out that's been performing, bring another reliever in. At the end of the day, rule of thumb, the only good decision you make is when that next guy comes in and does a great job. Because if the guy you choose comes in and doesn't do a good job, that's on you.
Yeah.
It's on you. And there may be other reasons, but you don't negate the other reason. You made the decision.
Right.
You keep that distraction or that off the reliever, the guy you chose to come in. The angst of the starter coming out and the reliever coming in. And I tell the media, hey, when I made the decision, it was an excellent decision. It was a good decision. 6 pitches later, it was a horrible decision. I understand, and that's on me. So you own the situation. You honestly self-evaluate the situation. And then you strategically, for me, you put together a plan on recovery, a plan on rekindle, realign, whatever you need to do to find your way back. And I've been able to do that numerous times throughout my life. And it also helps when you have a small group of people in your life that you can depend upon, that you trust, that you can connect with. You can share your sorrow, your anxiety, your worry, your negativity, or your hopelessness, and be very authentic and transparent with them. And they're going to give you back what you need, because they love you unconditionally. They're not there to get anything out of this situation or relationship, to leverage anything. They're there because they're your friends. They're your posse. I call it a Mount Rushmore. I talk about that in my book, Hurdle-isms, as well, as having some people you can depend upon to tell you what you need to hear and not what you want to hear.
Yeah. Tell us, after your playing career finished, your journey into ending up being a major league manager at 2 different stops for over a decade. So tell us about that journey.
I will. I'm going to give you the most interesting part that started it all off. At the age of 30, I've gone from an everyday player to a platoon player to a part-time player, a bench player. I started off as a right fielder. I learned to play left. I was moved to first very early on my rookie year with no first base experience whatsoever. That was cataclysmic and something. You talk about a collision course. But then I also learned how to catch later on in my career. Magnificently brilliant idea by Davey Johnson, because it put me behind the plate in the minor leagues and saw the game from a different lens. I'd never seen it before. Everything was out in front of me. Everybody else was out in front of me. Where in the outfield, everybody's in front of you, but from a different angle. You develop relationships with pitchers. You read swings. You understand alignment, defensive strategy so much better. That being said, at the age of 30, I had actually made a couple major league rosters as a non-roster invite, which is a very hard feat to accomplish. Going into my year 31, I'm thinking, it would have been 1988. I got a call from a minor league farm director named Steve Shriver with the Mets. I got in played in the minor leagues with the Mets. And he said, hey, Clint, you got any plans for this year? I said, well, Steve, the Mets, you guys have offered me another NRI, a non-roster invitation spring training. And I just got a call from the Cardinals about a non-roster. invitation. They were one of the teams I played for as well at the end of my career. So I'm thinking of playing. He goes, "You're 31. You've made a team the last 2 years as an NRI. To do it the third year in a row, that could be very hard. Have you ever thought about managing or coaching in the minor leagues?" And I may have, but I didn't give it any deep thought because when you're playing, you're focused on keeping your job as a player.
Right.
And my last 2 seasons in New York, actually my last 3 seasons in 86 in St. Louis, I should say 85 in New York, 86 St. Louis, and 87 back in New York, I had pulled that off. And I had also not played a lot. So I could look at the game from a different window, a different seat, saw the value of preparation, of proper practice techniques, things people that didn't get to play a lot needed to figure out how to do. So when they got in a game that's already sped up, they didn't get sped up. So I said, I thought maybe someday. And he goes, "Today may be the day. This year may be the year." And I said, "Okay." I said, "So what do you think?" And he goes, "In the minor league, at that time, you had 6 teams. You had affiliates. You had 2 rookie ball teams, 2 A-ball teams, a double-A team, and a triple-A team." And he said, "Hey, we've got a rookie ball team," and I'm trying to think back, Glensville, New York, that I need a manager for. But that's not the bottom. It's one step up, but I think it'd be awesome. Your lessons you've learned, your story, overcoming, rising above, persevere. He's taking me the prettiest picture in the world. And I go, "Wow, that's interesting." And I said, "By the way, didn't you just open a new spring training facility in Port St. Lucie?" He goes, "Yeah, that's going to be our spring training site for a Major League club next year." I said, "Aren't you going to have a ball team there? High A, the Florida State League?" "Well, yes, we are." I go, "Is that an opportunity?" And then he lit into me. "That's 4 steps up the ladder. You right. The phone I had to take further and further away from my ear. And I said, "Okay, Steve, I guess that's off the table. I'm going to play." And then I got another earful. So I just said, "Okay, Steve, I got to go." About a week later, I get another call. He said, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you about subjects." So the last call didn't end up too well, Steve. You don't know. He goes, "I said some things I thought you needed to hear. No apology." I said, "Okay, so what do you got now?" He goes, "There's an opportunity with our low A ball team in Lynchburg, Virginia. And I got an opening there. And my heart's telling me no. My head's saying, give you the shot." And I'm like, "Wow, that's very humbling as well for thinking of me that way." I said, "Did you fill the spot in St. Lucie?" "Why? Well, so I guess you haven't filled that one. I guess it's not me." What? So I said, "Okay, Steve, I got to go." And I don't know if I'm going to hear back from him or not. Both calls didn't end well. I get a call back about another week later. He said, "So you're telling me if the job in St. Lucie is yours, you'll take it and you'll retire and you'll go get into managing this year?" I said, "Steve, first of all, only good players retire. Guys like me, we just don't get called anymore. So yes, I would stop playing tomorrow and I would be your minor league manager for the St. Lucie Mets." And that's the way that happened. That's
Oh my God.
in the managerial door of the New York Mets minor league system by threat coordinator, different lens, different job, different part helped me on my resume. And then I was offered an opportunity to be the first base coach, hitting coach for Don Baylor at the major league level. So after 9 years of the minor leagues, after playing for 10 in the major league, it wasn't an overnight sensation. I went back to the minor leagues for 9 years.
Wow.
And got back to the mid leagues as a hitting coach, first base coach. And I did that for Don for 2 years, did it for Jim Leland for 1, did it for Buddy Bell for 1, and then started the last year, 2002, to be the hitting coach. Buddy got fired 2 months into the season, and I was asked to be the interim manager in 2002. Went on to manage in Colorado 8 years, managed in Pittsburgh for 9 years. Things that you never see coming, but you prepare. And you surround yourself with good people. I'm a voracious note taker. I'm a big time journaler. I'm a lifelong learner. Another sequence and part of the book, and having a white belt mentality. I've always felt an ability to connect with the average guy, maybe the player with less than skills. The players I struggle get understanding where Larry Walker, Hall of Fame, Todd Helton, Andrew McCutcheon, MVPs. I couldn't. That's rare air. That was elitist. When they were struggle, that's when I could help them because I knew all about struggling. I knew about an 0 for 18 But I also had developed that eye for the pitching part of the game that's so critical by becoming a catchman. There were so many men along the way that helped me with my ideas and the formulation of what's important in baseball, how do you prepare and those things. To spend 8 years in Colorado and learn under the tutelage really of Kelly McGregor, one of my best mentors of my life. He was a team president for 8 years, get fired by Kelly McGregor and Dan O'Dowd, another man I love and stay in touch with to this day. They gave me an opportunity. I joined the Colorado Rockies organization in 1993 after being fired by the Mets as the minor league manager. I went there and knew one person. I knew the guy that hired me, and that was Dick Ballers. I didn't know anybody in that organization.
Wow.
And then you fast forward it to the I'm named the manager of Major League Club. Fired later, 8 years later, after we'd gone to a World Series, and then get another opportunity in Pittsburgh, 3-year run in Pittsburgh, where we were as good as any team in baseball, 2013 through 2015. Been blessed along the way, fantastic coaches, so many great players I've played with or I've coached or managed. It's been an incredible ride, incredible run. I'm grateful and thankful for each and every step of the way and all the hard that I've had to do as well, because I don't think you can really experience joy unless you've been sad. I don't think you can really, in the world of sports, the thrill of victory, you can't experience unless you've had the agony of defeat.
Right.
So I've seen both sides of those coins, and it's put me in a very fruitful position now, later on in life, to be that older version of the GPS on the side for somebody, a young manager, young coach, younger players.
Yeah.
Hey, Clint, let me delve into this a little bit deeper. So you managed, which 17 years is a long time, because managers come and go quite quickly. Head coaches or managers in baseball, football, basketball, at the professional level, most of them don't last too long. But I'm curious, what advice would you give that new leader? And let's use baseball because obviously that's where you spend most of your life in. What advice would you give them in leading a team?
There's many, but right off the top of my head, the game's not about numbers. It's about heartbeats. It's about trust. And it's about leading by example, the opportunity to show up every single day ready to get better. And back in the day, if you looked in Webster's dictionary, the definition of a coach was a mode of transportation, a person from one point to another that can't get there on their own. That definition of coach has not changed in over 200 years. I also felt it was important because I had been a young player, and there were always 3 gnawing things at me when I went into a new situation. Number one, the people, the manager, the head coach, whoever it was, basketball, football, baseball. Can I trust him? Does he care about me, and can they make me better? You all have been involved in athletics. In real life, it's no different. You won't let anybody really teach you until you trust them. You'll nod your head, you'll do some exercises, you'll perform as they ask you to perform, like a dog or a pet or an animal. But if there's not trust, you only go so far.
Right.
You'll finish the task, you'll complete the mission. If there's trust, you're going to give it all that and more. And then ask, what else can I do?
Yeah.
So we have to find a way to earn their trust, number one. When they earn their trust, then they give us the opportunity to coach them will show up. Then we need to let them know that we care about them other than their skill set. Need to know what kind of home they came from. Mom and dad still married. Was it a broken home? Was there a male figure involved? Did the dad, was he there? Did he check out? Did mom check out? Sisters, other brothers, hobbies, things they love to do, other passions they may have had. So when you go to approach them, they don't see the head coach or the manager coming and just going to share with them what didn't go well in the game last night or in the practice. How many of you, maybe Jim and Joe, have you ever had somebody when they started walking your way, you just dropped your head and you went up, no, here comes Clint. Oh, John. And start, but you know, that somebody walked your way and you started to go, oh no, here they come. I call that the oh-no coach. Don't be the oh-no coach. Have developed a relationship with your player and your coaches that when they see you coming, they just don't know what you're bringing. We may talk about a movie, we may talk about music, we may talk about hunting, we may talk about the kids I have at home or my wife or my mom and dad. So when they see you coming, they just know that I don't know what's going to happen. This is going to be good because every time he leaves, I feel better.
Wow.
And at the end of the day, those coaching opportunities start popping up. And they actually know that you can teach the sport or you can teach them about life. And there's real buy-in and there's real value in that when you can look somebody in the eye and say, son, this is going to be hard, but I really believe this is the way. I'd like to see you give it a shot. If it doesn't work, you doesn't feel right, let me know. We can draw something else up. But no coach usually ever shows up to really screw somebody up.
Right.
They may have the wrong motives in helping the player. It may be more of a transactional relationship where it's what the coach can get out of it rather than a transformational relationship where all the coach wants to see is the player have success.
Yeah. I got to ask too, because you mentioned the World Series. I remember as a kid watching that World Series, the Rockies against the Red Sox, and how good of a team the Rockies were in that era. But you have ups and downs in baseball. You go to the World Series one year, then the next year you lose 90 or 100 games. And as a manager, results, that's all on you. But you didn't change. The results just changed. So you mentioned failure is not a person, failure is an event. So how do you stay consistent even when the fans are either praising you or calling for you to be fired, or the media is talking about you as the best or not great? How do you stay consistent and keep, as a leader, your team consistent through all of that?
I think you need to remember, number one, that's what you signed up for. You signed up for that. And one of the best things a manager, head coach, or person in leadership can do is establish early on with your team, your troop, your group, I am here to take the blame. When there's success, you're going to make the credit. A good leader is a window when the team has success. Everybody can see through him and see everybody else. But they're a mirror when it doesn't work well, because I need to wear it and keep the distractions off the players, off the coaches. And you know what? Bobby Cox taught me some valuable lessons a long time ago. It was basically, why would you get caught up in the emotion and reactions of people that you don't even ask advice from?
That's a great point.
True.
He said, you don't know what their ties are in the game. And it's none of your business. On top of that, he said, your job is to focus on having a small group of people that will tell you the truth. It goes back to having truth tellers in your life, not bobbleheads. You all know what a bobblehead does, right? I've been on some staffs, and I've had some staffs where you find out the hard way that you get some coaches that I could say, hey, it's sunny right now and 75 degrees up. So I got, hey man, what's like rain? Oh yeah, coach, it's going to rain. There's no doubt. You're never wrong about the weather. What? They echo what you say. You need people to go, Clint, why do you think it's going to rain? It's 75. The sun's out. I don't see a cloud in the sky. Where did you come up with that? And I might have to go, you're right. Man. You need people that hold you accountable and hold you responsible. You're going to make a lot of decisions. Most of them work out, but some of them don't. And then honestly self-evaluate what might have gone wrong. Or you know what? There's times when the other team's just better. The other manager was smarter. The other pitcher pitched better. The other hitters hit better. That's sport. And I had a task that I did an intern to 1 year in Colorado, because Bobby Cox had this conversation with me. You make a lot of decisions in the course of the day. You think you're going to get all of them right? And I was like, wasn't that the goal? He goes, yes, Clint, that's the goal, but nobody gets them all right. So I said, I'm going to find out. I had an intern follow me with a pitch counter. Remember what those pitch counters look like? Those over there? And I said, okay. When I leave my office, I got ready, I got dressed. I'm getting ready to do my first meeting of the day with the pitching coach, game plan, the pitching against the other team. I said, you follow me. Every time I do this, click the counter, because I'm making a decision. We start at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. I work infield, outfield, BP, team meeting, hitters meeting, media. But we get to 6 o'clock, I go, what do you got in the counter? He goes, 273. I'm like, oh, wow. It's an hour before game time. Those are when the real decisions start mounting and counting. 273. I said, do you think I got all of them right, Jim? Can you think I got all of them right?
Most likely not.
Never. No. So I need to have a room full of men that are smarter than me in a lot of different areas to help me with my decision making, and sometimes actually give them ownership to make some serious decisions. I used to share with my group, if I'm the smartest man in the room, I got two problems. I either need a new room or I need new men.
Yeah.
I know the areas that I'm qualified in and I'm skilled. I'm not the guy you want teaching ground ball defense. I played the outfield. I can help a little there, not the ground ball. The catching thing I learned late. No, I'm not teaching anybody. I can teach you how to catch 101, but not the just somebody else. The pitching thing, the only thing I knew about pitching was hard.
True.
And then the trust you put in your advanced scouts that are watching the other teams prepare, the information and clues and cues they're giving you to prepare, find ways to just beat the other team. You trust those people. So there's a lot involved. And why should I think that I need to be the tip of the iceberg or the tip of the spear in every different category as we move this thing forward?
That's a great point. Hey, Clint, you brought it up, and I'm fortunate I do leadership presentations all over the country, and I've talked to many leaders. And one of the things I encourage leaders is to build an intentional trust plan. But I'm curious, because you mentioned how important trust is. Can you give your ideas on how you can build trust with people?
Yeah, you got to earn it. And you can earn it physically, you can earn it spiritually, you can earn it visually. It's basically doing what you say. It starts there. And you will not know whether we won by 10 or lost by 10 the day before. And I'm going to be present for you today. If I got a foot in yesterday and I got another foot in tomorrow, it's a really bad visual, but it looks like I'm taking a crap on today. Today is the only day that we actually have an opportunity to impact. And to this day, I have quiet time in the morning more often than not, because early in the morning, I could pretty much guarantee myself 2 hours of solitude. It'll take 2 hours. And then I may go out my business of sending my devotional in the morning. There may be some encouraging emails or texts that I want to send in the morning. But I deploy a lot of encouragement early in the morning as well, after I've had my time to ground myself, explore and dig into my faith again, and then realize my biggest goal for today is to be a very simple man in a very complex world.
Yeah, we got to ask you about your book, Hurdle-isms, too. But before we do that, I know in baseball and managing any sport, you got to bring the right people on the bus, right? You got to have the right people to form the team. And talent is certainly super important. You can't have a baseball player on your team who doesn't know how to play baseball. But what are some of the other characteristics that you looked for when you're talking about calling players up, players who are starting, whatever the case is, to bring the right people on the bus?
I'm looking for lifelong learners. I'm looking for people that don't know it all. I'm looking for players. One of the biggest traits I look for is somebody that is more than willing, not just willing, but loves to celebrate the success of someone else. It's a Buddhist term. It's called mudita. When you express extreme joy for the success of others. Also look for people that are hungry and have been humbled. I look for people that ask good questions. I look for people that have the ability to either lead or follow. Because when you think about it, you're either leading or you're following. That hat can switch many times during the day. What I don't want is the person that's doing neither, because you know what that person is? If you're not a leader or follower, John, you're a roadblock. You're slow, you're quicker. You spend less money, you're more efficient with your time, you get better results. Without trust, you spend more money, float year after year. It's not old school versus new school in the game of baseball today. It's about being in school. I'm 68. I've seen more change in the last 5 to 6 years of baseball than I might have seen in the first 40 years that I was in. I was in baseball for the 50th year last year.
Wow.
35 years at the major league level. We've seen more change in the last 7, 8 years than I did in the first 40. I've had to change. I've had to evolve. The game's going to go on with me, or how am I going to connect with young players if I don't catch up on new ideas and new things and still be able to sprinkle some old school values that, you know what, they don't change.
Right.
They're timeless. They're foundational. I think lastly, you remember that they're people, and you remember how hard the game was to play when you play it. Sometimes the higher up we go and you start looking down, maybe it looks like a checkerboard or a chess, and we call players pieces sometimes today. That gives me a little head twitch. They're not pieces. They're human beings. They have a heartbeat. When you remove the heartbeat, the game becomes sterile. The game becomes robotic. So those are a few things that I keep in mind when I'm looking to establish or build a culture, some leadership. And then there comes a point in time, most important, that you take all these keys and you throw them to your coaches and you throw them to your players and you let them drive the car.
Yeah.
And then you sit back and you watch and you evaluate.
Great thoughts. Speaking of wisdom, Jon set the table, so I'm going to dig into it. Again, show the book, Hurdle-isms. Tell us the genesis and a little bit about the book.
Another funny story. I'm full of funny stories. I believe it's good to laugh with, not at, unless people really well, then you can laugh at.
Yeah. Right.
I was reached out to after Colorado. We went to the series. Great story. Let's write a book. A handful of people wanted me to co-author a book. I went to Texas for 1 year. We went to the series there and lost. We went to the series there. Very good ball team led by Ron Washington, who happened to be my third base coach in the minor leagues with the Mets. He reached back to me to come help him.
Wow.
And after the year in Texas, they wanted some people actually because wanted my perspective on how was I able to help a small group of men and coaches get over this, pun intended, hurdle and get to the World Series and beat the Yankees. And then in Pittsburgh, when we had the magnificent turnaround, back-to-back seasons, 212 losses, and then 2 more tough seasons of losing, 20 consecutive losing seasons, and then 3 straight years of really good baseball, getting to the playoffs, 1 year, 2 wild card events, broke the streak of 20 consecutive losing seasons, 21 seasons without a playoff. A bunch of people reached out to me, just asked, hey, co-author a book. There's a story here. I kept saying no. I was in uniform. I thought it could be a distraction. I wasn't comfortable with it. And I would not admit at the time, I can admit it now, but there was a degree of fear that I never even acknowledged. I never done it. I got a high school education. I'm not for my whole life. This is what a few friends brought. Look, you've been writing your whole life, kid. Who are you kidding? So Dave Burchett, who was the TV productions manager for Ranger Baseball, I got to know him in 1 year. Great man of faith, great friend, reached out to me early about writing the book after the rain. I said no. During COVID, he reached back. He said, hey, I got a different idea. How about writing a book with me? We'll co-author it. We'll write about life lessons learned the hard way. 2 guys, different professions. We worked on that book for 2 years. I thought, it's still a good book, and I believe with all my heart, Lord willing, it will be published. But when we tried to get it published, we got told no over 20 times.
Wow.
And the 3rd or 4th time, they just don't get it. It'll happen. And then, no. So you go from being a little sad to mad. And then finally later on, because I started saying, Dave, what are they telling us? He's telling me, I go, I need to hear it. So the next time I want to be on the call, I want to be on the Zoom, and they're going to shoot us down. I listened to a couple of them. The last one was a young publisher said, guys, it's too male, pale, and stale. You're both over 60. You're both white. The net we throw with this book, it's not going to capture a whole lot. And then he got into, you don't have enough followers. And I look around me and I go, no, there's nobody in this house with me. He goes, no, social media, you do. I wasn't on social media at the time. I had put out a daily email that I still do. I've got about 8,000, 9,000 people subscribed to that. He goes, you don't even have a footprint or a presence in social media. Is that a thing? Oh, yes. Normally, we take applications of, you don't have 30,000 followers. We don't even interview.
Wow.
So finally, Dave put all this work in this book for 2 years. He looked at me and just said, Clint, will you do me one favor? Dave, I'll do anything.
Yeah.
He said, will you get your friend Jon Goehring to read the book? I didn't want to involve any friends of mine that had written books. I have a few that are pretty good at it, but I didn't want to go to that avenue. Probably should have at the beginning, but I didn't. And I asked Jon to read the book. Jon read the book in 2 days. And the first book was a lot longer than my book. He goes, Clint, there's some really good stuff in here, but you don't throw a big enough net. This is not going to work. My guy wouldn't publish it. He said, you get one chance to write a book in this industry. Usually, if you write a book that's got some legs to it, there's no telling how many books you can write. But if you write a book that's a flop, it's going to be hard for you to flip back in the door. He said, you need to write a book. I'm like, Jon. I gave him 5 reasons why I didn't need to write a book. He said, so you're afraid. I said, Jon, you're a good friend. Stop. No, I'm not afraid. I gave him 5 reasons why I wasn't afraid. He listened, nodded his head. He goes, so you're really just afraid. He says, Clint, I've been to your spring training 8 times. I don't know how many times. With Pittsburgh in Colorado. I've listened to you talk to players, coaches, teams. He goes, I keep a file called Hurdle-isms of things you've said. I haven't done anything with it. I didn't know if I'd ever do anything with it, but I'm going to send you some of them, and you need to look at them, and you need to call your Mount Rushmore group and some friends and come up with some other, and you need to write a book called Hurdle-isms.
Wow.
That's where it started. Jon, basically, I tell him for a joke that he bullied me into writing a book. Really, he dared me. He called me out. And that was the thing that was holding me back. What would people think? I went back to 18-year-old Clint. What would people think? They won't like it. It'll be embarrassing. It'll be too hard. I can't do it. I've never done it. What will people think? It goes, Clint, you're experiencing every emotion and feeling that anybody that's ever wrote a book feels. That's not different. He goes, write the darn book. I'll get you in front of the people at Wiley, and then you got to earn the opportunity. So I went through 3 interviews. I wrote an introduction. I wrote a foreword. I did an elevator pitch. And they got to the point where we go, we want to write the book with you. So we did a month and a half of early lifting, coming up and whittling down the Hurdle-isms to 25. I did 6 months of writing on planes. Never wrote at home. I wanted to do it when I was by myself. No interruptions on a plane. You don't get interrupted a lot of plane time. And then we did a month and a half at the end. I wasn't aware. I had spell check. They had spell check. I had deadlines I had to meet along the way. I had editors that were sending back my homework where was more. I thought I wrote in red. There was so much red on it. So then I send you a white piece of paper. It's turned pink. But they were teaching me. They were helping me learn the understanding. And they would never say, this won't work. You need to find a different way. You need to find a different story. You need to tell it differently. So I went from the guy that didn't want to write a book and was just going to share information with another person who was going to write the book and do all the heavy lifting, to write every word, spell check. The hardest, most challenging part for me was in calling up. I didn't realize every time I used somebody's name, I had to go back and verify the story was true. They said, you got to call these people because Clint, just between you, you're 66, you may not remember. Well, and I'm like, yeah, Lee, really? They go, yeah, because the last thing you want is to write the story. And then George Brett calls up and said, you got to get it right. You get the facts right. So turned out to be, I was very tentative. I was like, oh my gosh, this is hard. Every time I'd bring up the story, they'd be like, yeah, that was the story. Then they'd replay it with me. Or they said, no, Clint, not quite. Here's what happened. Or you missed this, you forgot it. They turned out to be wonderful conversations with people I hadn't talked to, many of them in some time. Took us a year to do it. We launched it a year ago next month. It's up and running. We're selling copies. I had a book tour planned over the summer. And then I took the side hustle from the Rockies and got back in uniform and had to push all these events to different places. This Thursday, I'm speaking in Pittsburgh, selling books, speaking to a corporate group called Virgo Leadership. The next day, I'm going to an assisted living facility where they've done things and I get 120 people, families, and the parents that are in there. I'm doing a presentation with a book. And then Philly, I'm going the next day in Philly. So I got 3 presentations this weekend. The best part for me, the response. I can honestly say it's been from people from the age of 8 to 92.
Wow.
The oldest note I've got is from somebody 90. My dad's 92. It wasn't him. I wrote to him, but boy, girl, young, old, baseball, non-baseball, school teachers, truck drivers, yes, coaches, but just people in real life. That's been the most rewarding part. And that really was the goal and the why of writing the book in the first place.
Wow. So Hurdle-isms is available wherever you get your books. There's a link also down in the show notes to make sure you grab the book. If you want more Clint, you got to check out those Hurdle-isms. And Clint, would you want to share one of your Hurdle-isms just as a little preview for us? What is one of those things that you'd always tell your players?
Yeah, I've gone through some hard times in life. In the book, I'm very transparent. 27 years. Got 2 DUIs.
Wow.
These aren't things I'm proud of, but I think they need to be shared. I need to be honest and transparent. The book, I've had a lot of lessons learned the hard, and I've had a lot of people in my corner that stay with me and help me get through some things. But after, I want to say my second divorce, I was whining, complaining, my job, my wife, this and that. My dad just said, time out. Meet me in the garage. That had been going on since I was 8 years old. Whenever I started whining or moping or complaining about something, he would say, son, get in the garage. So we got in the garage. He said, I'm tired of listening to you. He said, we're gonna go take a walk. I want you just to use your ears. I don't want to hear a word out. I'm nodding already. I didn't say yes. I just nodded and we started walking. And he goes, life's hard. And did you hear me? I said, yeah. I said, didn't say. I just, life's hard. Yeah. Yes. Tell me you heard me. I said, yes, you told me not to talk. You're right. Life's hard. But the biggest thing, Clint, life's hard for you. He said, you're going to do hard the rest of your life. How you handle hard, how do you react to hard is what's going to determine the quality and the value of your life and the kind of people you keep in your life. He said, the only thing that's fair in life is a ball between first and third base. I've used that over and over again. Not fair for anybody. Books have been written. Why do bad things happen to good people? My buddy Dave Burchett wrote one of the best faith-based books I ever read. And here's the title, When Bad Christians Happen to People. I mean, I've had cancer. My mom died August 2nd at the age of 89. She's a cancer recovery. She was for years, recovered from cancer. My sister, I told you the other hard stuff about me. We have a daughter, Madison, was born with a birth defect. She's 23 years old. Life doesn't stop getting hard. You just find better ways to work through the hard and find the good. And my faith plays a tremendous role in everything I do or touch. And I realize that God's got a plan for all of it. My job is to show up, to turn my little light on, and be a vessel for him to work through, and to importantly, be a servant for him, with him on my journey. That's what I've been doing for close. I actually had to recommit my life to Christ and sober at the same time. Those two things were superpowers. The last thing I'll mention is the third time I got married. I've been married 26 years now with Carla. She's one of the best things ever happened to me. God loves me so much, he put Carla in my life as well. But guys, 27 years sober, 26 years married the third time. My drinking complicated a lot of things in my life. And by telling my story, there have been people that have reached out and told me, hey, I'm in the same, the drinking. What did you do? How did you do it? So all these hardships I've had, I know God was with me in them. Some of the times he's given me freedom of choice. What he doesn't give me is the freedom to choose the consequences of my choice. So I've got to own up to the consequences, and then I've got to make amends, and then I'm just going to do better and not make the same mistakes. That's what I've tried to do. That's what I'm trying to do in my life right now. I'm just trying to share a story that basically is based around experience, strength, and hope.
Wow. That's really powerful. And Coach and I are both people of faith. That's really important to us as well. And so to hear you say that and that 27 year, it's just inspiring. And we know that we bring you on as the leader and the baseball player and manager, but we understand that you're so much more than that. And thank you for sharing that, Clint. Seriously, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Thank you, Clint. It's been a real honor to have you on our podcast. We look forward to staying in touch. Jon, what's the best way? I know the book, but Clint, what's the best way that our followers can reach out to you if they want to get on?
They'll still go out. It's at ClintHurdle.com. And basically, if you will go on any social media platform, I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, and I'm on X. I have a Linktree account set up. The book there, you can get my emails. They're free. ClintHurdle.com is the quickest way to go. Quickest way to get the book is Amazon, but feel free to reach out. Feel free. It doesn't have to cost you something to reach out. That's why the emails will always be free. They're just people that I follow, hope that I share. The other social media platforms, you'll never see me in an argument. I'll never be in a fight. I'm just trying to share some positivity. I'll share maybe what's worked for me. I'll encourage you. Each one of those platforms, that's what it's built for. And my son, Christian, dared me with that when he left for college. Dad, you got so much good to give. You're not even, the social media network is your thing to really reach a lot of people that you haven't even considered. So again, I looked for help in another area, and it came from an 18-year-old young man. It's not a big deal, but when he'll point out to me from time to time, Dad, do you realize that all your little events now, you're texting 50,000 people? And I'm like, what? The followers that is reason people follow me.
I want to say just to our followers that I'm on your email, and we connect a lot on social media. Really look and follow Clint. He's got a lot of great information to share.
Yeah, those links down in the show notes. And Clint, I got to ask you in our final second here, you've stopped at so many places, major league and minor league. Do you have one or two that really stand out, your favorite places to live and work over the course of your career?
Wherever I was at the time. It may sound cliche-ish, but some of the places were highlight spots, but I needed to be where I was. There's not much of a better view than PNC Park at sunset when the sun captivates and the lighting comes off the big buildings above the Clementi Wall, the North Shore Notch, and all that. This was a beautiful city.
Yeah.
Colorado has a beautiful view. San Diego. I actually have people saying, "What's the worst place? What's the worst big league park?" I said, there is not a worst big league park. I can tell you some worst minor league parks that I've been to, but there's not a worst big league park. Jim, I can't thank you enough for the opportunity. I appreciate what you do, your servant's heart, your leadership skills, everything you put out. I read, John, I'm looking forward to following you. And I can't more thankful and grateful for this opportunity when you get to sit.